Guruve Gaura Chanjaya Radhikaya Tadare Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhuve Vacha Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dhanyavad Pranam devotees. So it's been a little while. I do have some questions and answers to catch up on, but I've had a little bit of a busy period. So I'll have to catch up on some of those later. Today I'm particularly, because of the fact that yesterday was Ram Navami and there was some Harikatha regarding Ram Navami, and also because some questions had also arisen regarding Ram Lila, I thought I would extend that meditation and answer a few questions to the best of my ability regarding Shri Ram Lila. Dhanyavad Pranam Sadhana Siddha Prabhu. So, one thing is, a question arose as to why in Srimad Bhagavatam the pastimes of Lord Rama are only told in a very concise way. I think in the 9th canto, maybe chapters 9, 10, and 11 primarily deal with the pastimes of Lord Rama. And of course, the pastimes of Narasimhadev in Srimad Bhagavatam is very expansive, and obviously the pastimes of Shri Krishna are very expansive. And they wanted to know, why were the pastimes of Ram not dealt with as expansively, especially given the prominency and popularity of Shri Ram in terms of how many devotees there are of Ram. So a couple of things. One is that of course Srimad Bhagavatam has a primary focus, and that primary focus was to establish the supremacy of Krishna Prem, and to establish the supremacy of Krishna Prem in order to also keep the proper format of a Purana, which is to describe 10 categories: Atras Agavisagascha Stanaposanutaya, Manavataisha Nukata, Niroda Muktyasraya. These are 10 categories that are generally established in any Puran. So these were established in Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as answering 6 questions by the sages gathered at Namasaranya to Shuta Goswami, and also to gradually and systematically build the case for Krishna Prem, especially Braja Prem, through narrations of various incarnations, and culminating in the express mood of Vrindavan, right? Especially the love of Srimati Radhika as the pinnacle, and the nature of divine service to that love of Srimati Radhika. So this is the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam if you analyze it according to Vichara. So, therefore, the pastimes of Lord Ram were dealt with in a way as to give a summary leading to the discussion of the pastimes and the nature of Braja Prem in relation to Shri Krishna. Now, also, certainly because the pastimes of Lord Ram have been dealt with extensively in Itihasa, means a history called Ramayana, then Vyasadeva had no need to further expand really on what was spoken by Valmiki. Of course, also, there are only 2 Itihasas, which are Ramayana and Mahabharata. And in the Mahabharata, the prominent thing in Mahabharata is, of course, Bhagavad Gita. But that only takes up a very small section of Mahabharata. So, though Krishna is also discussed in Mahabharata, it's not like it is in Srimad Bhagavatam. Similarly, in the Ramayana, Sri Ramachandra's Lila is discussed in full in 7 different sections: Balakand, Ayodhya-kand, Aranya-kand, Nishkinda-kand, Yudha-kand, Sundarakand, and Uttarakhand. In some variations on Ramayana, you'll not find Uttarakhand. I think Sri Tulsidas Ji in Ramcharitmanas, he did not include Uttarakhand. I'll speak a little bit about that shortly, because Uttarakhand is very important in understanding the entire context of Ramayana. So then, of course, the question would arise, well, then why did not Sri Tulsidas Ji include it? So I'll go ahead and do that now. So in a very similar way to the fact that in Ananda Vrindavan Champu, like Kavi Kanapur, he did not write Krishna's Mathura and Dwarka Gamana, means the going of Krishna to Mathura and Dwarka, because it was too painful to write this pastime of Krishna leaving Braj and going there. So he only writes up to the nature of the Ras, Lila, and the Julian, right? Julian means the swing festival, right? So he does not write the pastime of Akrura coming and taking Krishna to Dwarka and to going to Mathura rather than to Dwarka. So this is the same thing with Ramcharitmanas. Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas Ji, because Uttarakhand contains many very painful sections, the banishing of Sita, so forth and so on, then it was very tough for Tulsidas Ji to write these things. So he didn't, right? So, but still, if you read Valmiki Ramayana, then all of these things are there. In fact, let me go into that section now, because the Uttarakhand of Ramayana sets the table actually for how Ramayana is written, right? Because in the Uttarakhand, there is a kind of indication of the entire backstory to how Valmiki will write Ramayana, right? One thing that sometimes comes into question is, when did Valmiki write Ramayana? Was it after the pastime, before the pastime? Actually, Valmiki and Ram, Valmiki of course was older, but they were contemporary. Because remember that Ram and Sita and Lakshman stayed at the ashram of Valmiki during the course of their banishment. So certainly Valmiki was alive at that time. Now, Valmiki had not written Ramayana during that time, that Sita and Ram stayed at the ashram. But in the Uttarakhand, it's clearly mentioned that once, I'll tell the story, once when Ram and Sita had returned to Ayodhya and had been living in Ayodhya for 2 years, at that time, they had constructed one sort of museum, for lack of a better word. And this is because the Ayodhya-vasis, they had not been able to witness or so much hear about the pastimes of Lord Ram during his 14 years while he was in the forest. So all of the beautiful pastimes like a Chitrakoot, the meeting of Guha, Sabari, so many different sweet pastimes were there, but they had not heard these. So they constructed one sort of museum, for lack of a better word, where they created much artwork and dioramas depicting those pastimes during the course of their time in the forest. So once Sita was there, along with Lakshman and Sri Ramji and some ministers, and they were discussing this museum, and Sita Devi came across one diorama of the depiction of Valmiki Muni's ashram. At that time, Sita was already pregnant with Love and Kush. And she thought to herself and mentioned that, oh, how beautiful it was during the time we stayed in that ashram. It was so beautiful by its nature, its sweetness, the peace of the atmosphere. And though our Ayodhya is wonderful and is ruled by Dharma personified, because this was the nature of Sri Ramji, he's Dharma personified. Therefore, our acharyas have called him Maryada Purushottam. Means he's the personification of Maryada, means etiquette, Dharma, etc. So she said, though this Ayodhya is very wonderful, how nice would it be that our children could be raised in the peace of the atmosphere of Valmiki's ashram. So while they were discussing this, one minister named Bhadra came in. And this Bhadra, he immediately came to Sri Lakshmanji and whispered in his ear, I have a very important message to relay to Sri Ram. So a little private meeting was set up. No, Ji, I'm in States, actually. Prabhu's asking if I'm speaking from in India now. I'm telling no. So I'm in the States. So actually Bhadra, he then spoke in council with Lakshman and Ram and told that he had overheard some rumblings in the kingdom, and he had especially heard that one Dobiwala means like a washerman, chastised his wife who had spent the night at her father's house and had not returned to her own home. So there's a whole deeper story to this. This wife apparently went to the home of her father, and it became very late, and so she could not come alone in the night to her marital home. But the husband made a critique of that by saying, do you think I am like Ram, that you can stay away from my house overnight and you will easily be accepted back? So Bhadra, this minister, overhearing this, spoke it to Ram and to Lakshman. So Ram at that moment pondered for a minute, and then he thought, though he had already proven the chastity of Sita, when he conquered Lanka, he did what is called Agni Pariksha, means he examined Sita by fire, right? And there's a whole story also that originally when Ravan kidnapped Sita, the Sita that he kidnapped was a Chaya Sita, or Shadow Sita, or some say Maya Sita, and that the original pure form of Sita was kept with Swaha Devi, the wife of Agni. And that when the Agni Pariksha was performed at Lanka, then the real Sita emerged, obviously, and the Chaya Sita was dismissed, right? So already Ram knew that Sita was absolutely pure. But because he's Maryada Purushottam, because he's Dharma Purush, he has to uphold the line of Dharma. And when he pondered for a minute, he thought, and then he whispered into the ear of Lakshman, oh Lakshman, early tomorrow, I want you to take Sita by chariot very nearby the ashram of Valmiki. And when you get near that ashram, you should leave her there and return here to Ayodhya. When Lakshman heard this, Lakshman was devastated. There were many situations throughout the course of the Ram's Lila where Lakshman was subdued by the nature of being the younger brother. But this particular request by Lord Ram was unbearable. And because it was unbearable, our acharyas have mentioned that from that day on, previously it boiled in his heart, but from that day on, he vowed that he would never appear in another Lila as the younger brother. Therefore, obviously in Krishna Lila, that Lakshman comes as Shri Baladev Ji, he's Dalbaya, means he's older brother. Right? And in this case, being the older brother, not only is he not controlled by Krishna, but rather he controls Krishna. So many pastimes of Krishna in their Komara Lila, means their boyhood Lila, then Balarama is controlling Krishna. Even when Krishna will not be obedient to Ma Yashoda or Rohini Ma, certainly if Baladev will come, Krishna will obey. Right? And similarly, once they were older and they were living in Dwarka, Baladev not only did not have to ask permission to go to Braj to console Brijabasis, especially Gopis, but he chastised Krishna while you're not going. So, but in this Leela of Lord Ram, being in a position of younger brother, he could not do so by etiquette. And he had to follow the order, as painstaking as it was. So that next day, of course, he took Sita very near the ashram of Valmiki Muni, and he left her there. When he boarded back on the chariot, Sita Devi, understanding what was going on, she asked, listen, Lakshman, I know that I have perhaps offended you, especially when we were banished in the forest, and Marichi came, and I asked Lord Ram to get the fleece of that deer, because Sita thought this was one golden deer. And of course, they told, no, this is one demon Marich. But anyway, she wanted this. And when Ram went to get it, he told that Lakshman should stay and stand guard. But Sita, when she heard the voice, which was actually the voice of Marichi crying out for help, not Sri Ramchandra Ji, and Lakshman told her as much, still she said, listen, have you put me in a position where you want that your elder brother should be killed and you can have me for yourself? So how painful must that have been for Lakshman to hear such a thing? So Sita now is reflecting, perhaps because of the harshness of my words at that time, that now feeling offended or something, perhaps you've brought me here. But then she thought about it and said, no, no, no. But it is not in your nature. Because in your nature, you've tolerated so many things, not even eating and sleeping for those 14 years that we spent in the forest. You served myself and Ram with such great dedication. So it is not in your character that you would hold any sort of grudge like this. Therefore, this could only be by the order of your older brother. So he said, listen, Sita did not have one tear in either eye, but she looked at Lakshman and said, listen, your brother is Dharmaraj, right? He's the personification of Dharma. But ask one question from Dharma Sastra. Is it written anywhere that someone should abandon their pregnant wife in a forest? This is my only request to you. When Lakshman heard that, Lakshman completely broke down. There are many deep, heart-wrenching parts of Sri Ram Lila. Many, right? Just like in Krishna Lila, Krishna's going to Mathura, the separation of gopis, very heart-rendering. Similarly in Ram Lila, very heart-rendering scenes like this. So at that time, Lakshman returned, and the servants in the ashram of Valmiki Muni found Sita and took her there. And Valmiki made arrangement that she could stay in an ashram in a nice area that was especially made for her. Also, there's some idea that, well, what about the idea of chastity? That first of all, would a lady be staying in the ashram of any rishi that time? So the commentators on Ramayana, there's many commentators, just like there's many versions of Ramayana, there are many commentators also. So I think it's Govindaraj has commented that actually Sita and Valmiki have some relation like brother and sister. Because Sita Devi, she was born from the earth when Janak Maharaj was tilling a field in order to begin the construction of one Yagyashal, means a place where Yagya would be performed. The Tisa means the end of the plow. The Tisa uncovered one container, and in that container is where they found Sita. So they actually reversed that in Sanskrit. They reversed Tisa, became Sita. And they named that baby Sita. And of course, she was raised as the daughter of Janak Maharaj, etc. Similarly, Valmiki was formerly one Daikwait named Ratnakar. But due to the influence of Narada Muni, I'm not telling the whole story because it would take too long, he was reformed. And he began to do bhajan by chanting first Mara, Mara, Mara. And eventually, because it's mentioned, Sankyat Parihasam Vastovam Helanam Va Vaikuntanam Aseshaganam Vidu. That Sri Nam is so powerful that even if one will chant it in reverse order, where the syllables are not in the right order, or if one chants neglectfully, or if one chants indicating something else, like Ajamil chanted his son's name, not the name of Bhagavan Narayan, but still he got the benefit of the Vishnu Dutas appearing. In the same way, by chanting Mara, 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 this eventually came into the sequence of Rama, Rama, Rama. And Narada told him, listen, though you've committed so many sins in your past, Vaikunta Nama Asesha Aga Haram Vidu, that this name, being transcendental, Vaikunta Nam, can erase all kinds of sins. What does speak of erase all kinds of sins? It can also give moksha and can also give seva to Sri Ram. So Valmiki, he began chanting, and over the course of time becoming absorbed in Sri Nam, demonstrating the proper way to take Nam, right? One anthill began to grow over the body of Valmiki. In Sanskrit, a anthill is called Valmikam, right? That's the name of the anthill. So that anthill grew over the whole body. At the time that he really became in his perfected state, Valmiki, that time Shri Brahmaji appeared and sprinkled water on that anthill. And of course, washing away that anthill, the Valmiki was revealed. So he's named Valmiki because he's born from the anthill Valmikam. And that anthill is also considered in Shastra to be the ears of Bhumi Devi. So it's related to Bhumi Devi. It's considered to be the ears of Bhumi Devi. Therefore, Valmiki is also considered to be born from Bhumi. So like this, there is a kind of relationship of brother and sister between Sita and Valmiki. So staying at his ashram was not a problem. So when this happened, Valmiki was very bewildered. And he was walking one day with his disciple named Bhadadvaj. And coming across the beauty of the scenery very near his ashram, which was on the bank of the Tamasa River, he saw one scene. He saw two Kuruntra birds in a tree. And those two birds, they were in the process of mating. Just as he observed this scene and noticed the beauty of the atmosphere of the forest, an arrow whizzed past. And that arrow struck the male Kuruntra bird, who fell down and died, leaving the female Kuruntra bird piteously crying. So as soon as he saw that scene and he saw one hunter there, he said, Ma Nishada. And he recited one shlok, and this shlok was born from the spontaneity of the emotion he felt. So the word ma in Sanskrit means to stop. So ma nishada. So he chastised, oh you, nishada means fallen person. Immediately you should stop this behavior, and may infamy follow you throughout the rest of your life for this act of killing this Kuruntra bird. Just at the time, maitunanadi ekam kama mohitam. Just at the time, bewildered by their own desire for each other, they were mating and you killed them. So may you live in infamy for the rest of your life for this. Immediately, Bhadadvaj and Valmiki Rishi left that area and returned to his ashram. When Valmiki returned to his ashram, he began to contemplate. So many years austerity I performed. So much deep absorption in Sriman. How is it possible for one of these 6 negative elements to overcome me? Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Matsarya are the 6 sort of evils, so to speak. So Krodh or anger is one. So how could this anger have arisen in me so quickly? So then contemplating it, he thought, I should go back and I should give teachings to that hunter. Because simply giving a curse and not giving any benediction is not really the nature of sadhu. If anyone will be repentant and has some remorse for their activity, they should be given a second chance. So he went back to the place where the whole scene had taken place, and upon arrival, again he only saw the beauty of the forest scene. He didn't see the 2 Kuruntra birds, nor did he see one dead bird. He did not see the female bird who was crying. He did not find the hunter, but amazingly he did not even see any blood or any results of that previous scene. So Valmiki Muni was completely bewildered. So it's mentioned then that Sri Brahmaji and Nard both appeared there. At that time, in his bewilderment, Valmiki thought, well, what is going on? I can't understand. But seeing Sri Naraji, who was his Gurudev, he offered Dandavat Pranam in one verse. And then he also asked, what happened here? So then it was described to him that during Lord Ramachandra's stay in Janastan, that he was attacked by 14,000 Rakshasas. He killed 13,999. One of them escaped. The one that escaped was named Akampana. Akampana took the form of a Kuruntra bird. It was that Kuruntra bird who was in the tree that Ramachandra himself took the form of a hunter in order to complete the task of killing all the 14,000 Rakshasas. So at that time, completely bewildered a little bit now, Valmiki is inquiring, oh, how could such a person, give me one second. Let me just, yeah. How could such a person have taken so much effort to carry out such a thing? This inspired in Valmiki a question, and he asked this question to Narada Muni. This is another proof that Ram and Valmiki were living at the same time. So he says, Hu kanu asmin sapratam loke. Give me one second. Dandavat Prabhuji, just doing a class. Let me call you right back. All right, go. So, kanu asmin sampratam loke Gunavam Vichiryavan, Dharma Gya Krita Gya, Satyavakto Dhridavrataha. So he says, listen, who is that person who is living right now? Sampratam, Ashmin Loke means who's living in this place right now, who has 16 qualities of perfection of a Mahapurush? Is there anyone living right now who has those qualities? So he begins by naming them. Who is that? Gunavan means these 16 qualities, and he says, who is Viryavan, very chivalrous? Who is Dharmagya, who's fixed in Dharma? Who's Kritagya, who is so grateful? Who is Satyavak, always speaks the truth? And what person also is Dhridavrat? Dhridavrat means determined to carry out their vow. So then Brahma and Narad explained to Valmiki, you have already witnessed the Dhridavrata of that person who has come in the Ishwaku dynasty named Sriman. So now Valmiki becomes more bewildered because he says, you're going to tell me that the person who is the most perfect is that person whose wife is living in my ashram that he banished to the forest while she was pregnant. So this is the genesis in Uttarakhand of the whole Ramayana, right? So then Narad and Brahmaji tell, listen, you should sit and contemplate deeply the pastimes of Ram through these 16 qualities. And they go on to narrate different pastimes of how Ram fits the 16 different qualities. I can't go through all now, it would also take too long, right? But he describes how he's Kritagya by his punishing one crow who was related to Indra, and the time that Indra helped one of his ancestors by allowing him, when his chariot was broken, that Indra took the form of a bull with a hump. The hump of a bull is called Kutastha. So Dasarat, not Dasarat, but an ancient ancestor of Ram, stood on that hump to fight the demons. And so remembering that, when one crow had bit Sita, Ram punished that crow, who was related to Indra, right? Punished that crow only by blinding him in one eye instead of killing him. So in this way, he describes so many different pastimes of Ram related to how he fits these 16 different qualities. So when Valmiki goes to meditate on this, he then begins to think, but how will I understand all of the pastimes that I've missed, right? His boyhood pastimes, his pastimes before I met him, all the pastimes in the forest before they came to my ashram. So Brahmaji told him, listen, because this was the desire of Bhagavan, that these pastimes should be discussed. When you look at your palm, just like looking at a TV, you'll see all the pastimes of the Lord from his Baal Lila all the way up until the very end. So those things which happened prior and those things which have yet to come, you'll be able to see them all in your palm. So like this, Valmiki Rishi was giving the blessing by Brahmaji, ultimately by Bhagavan himself, to completely write all the pastimes that are there in Sri Valmiki Ramayana. And as I mentioned, there are many different versions of Ramayana and many commentaries. And so we're very fortunate, even to this day, that the pastimes of Lord Ram are so fully explained. So my original point here was, therefore, in Srimad Bhagavatam, they were only put in a synopsis. But in Valmiki's Ramayana, everything is discussed in full. Just like normally, people may speak Srimad Bhagavatam over a period of 7 days in honor. So we're not talking about the cheap versions of a Bhagavat Sapta that sometimes are done for money and everything, but in honor of the narration of Shukdev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, then sometimes there's Bhagavat Sapta. In the same way, there are discussions on Ramayana that go over a course of 9 days, right? Because Ram, he was born on the 9th day, he was banished to the forest on the 9th day, he returned to Ayodhya on the 9th day. You understand? So anyways, I'm going to have to wind up here. But very many things are established in the Uttarakhand of Ramayana. The genesis of why and the hows and so forth is written. From there, of course, Valmiki goes on to describe the Baal Lila and how Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughan, how they are born, and the nature of the appearance of Rishashinga, who performs the sacrifice, the yajna, in order to give a son to Dasarat Maharaj. So many things are there, so many details after that. But I just wanted to give some questions and answers based on some of the questions that came up. So I think I kind of covered as much as I could possibly cover at this time. My Dhanavad Pranam. Oh, Haribo, Dhanavad Susanto Prabhu. I hope you're feeling better, Prabhuji. And yeah, we had a very nice visit from Sifu Young. And he came to the school yesterday, so it was very nice meeting him. We associated with him also over the course of the weekend in one conference, but it was very nice of him to come, and he very fondly acknowledged you. So very, very nice. And I'm happy to see that you're here. Hope that you're feeling better. Dandavat Shamrup Prabhu, all the devotees who are on. I saw Lalita Sati and Natak Gopal. I hope also, Didi, you're feeling better. Mataji, I heard you're having some health challenge, but hopefully you're feeling better as well. And all the devotees who are on now. So my Dandavat Pranam. Hope everybody had a wonderful Ram Navami yesterday and very nice meditations on Shri Ram. Jai Dandavat Pranam. Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.